shit. Apparently, what part of this live stream do they talk about debates?
And I do think it's important sometimes to open things a little bit and realize that people that we looked up to or thought were interesting or important were not good. Irish philosopher to be hallucinogenic substances, you know. But I did that. 1,000 hate former President Donald Trump to say there's no joy on the left. But you know, there's some evidence to that. But what we look into, we talk about some fun philosophy in it, is this idea that, you know, pursuing truth, justice, goodness, and beauty is not necessarily always a fun or easy or happy journey, but there is a satisfaction, not a satisfaction, a meaning, a purpose, a joy that comes through seeking out the truth that is way better than a satisfaction that comes from accepting the world as it is. If that got you a little bit hard, then you're going to like the video that comes out on Friday. In the meantime, as we approach our 10th anniversary, I would love us to get to 1,000 patrons. I did say this on Twitter, so it's legal.
This is Wisecrack going live and talking about
and it's a series called "Don't Put That in the Video." People let me know, and we'll do the old 3, 2, 1. Just a 30-second clip of a 5-minute video where producer Olivia gets outtakes from things I say when we film. There are way you got to be. Track Patreon.
Still shilling the Patreon
chat. The best gang on the internet. And today's main topic is the question: is debate useful? Now, we all know as people that spend time on the internet, on spaces like YouTube and Twitter, that there's a whole subculture, not even a subculture, a whole culture of debate. People whose entire careers these days are debating ideas. And for many of us, this can be an interesting way into exploring new ideas. It can be a mechanism by which our own assumptions are challenged or pushed. And a lot of us, I wasn't one of these people, but a lot of people do debate in high school and college, and it's a way that they, you know, get smart, get good at argumentation, get good at pointing out the flaws in others' logic, things of that nature. So, you know, there's value in debate. And of course, one of my interests in debate is that it's at the heart of the philosophical tradition, right? People have been debating for a very long time, and a lot of early text in philosophy are not just, you know, dude sits in a room and writes stuff. They are the recounting of conversations and dialogues that took place. So, you know, we go back to Plato. In particular, we go to Socrates and Plato's Socrates. And all those texts, if you've ever read them in like an intro to philosophy class, they're just conversations. They're back and forths. Now, the reason they were back and forths is because the idea is that when we explore ideas collectively, when we participate in dialogue, we're able to go further. We're able to push each other. If you think about it in terms of, you know, I don't know if we got any jazz heads in the chat, but think about improvisational music, like jazz music. It's the combination of instruments doing different things and having different POVs that pushes things in new directions. It creates something bigger than the individual thing. For any of us who've ever participated in creative projects, we know that working together on something can often help us get further. So the thing that got us thinking here is there is a interview, and we'll go in reverse order here. We're first going to watch the reaction to an interview, and then we'll watch the thing itself. That sort of made, let me see this 1 second, that sort of made things go viral this week. And it is a clip, and we have it, I'm sure Henry will get that pulled up, and we'll do our little countdown to watch it. This is posted by Slushy. It is a clip from a Destiny stream. He's watching a HasanPiker interview, an interview that we will look at some of later, and he reacts to some comments that HasanPiker makes about debate. So we're going to check that clip out right now using our high-tech countdown system. Okay, so we're going to go 3, 2, 1.
Debate and like how stupid it was.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Like, debates are just purely for entertainment. I think it can have an educational component to it for sure, but overall, it's not about like whose facts are solid. It's more so about who says them in a more solid way, and also it's the theatrics. It's a good way to maybe bring some people over to your side in the margins. But overall, it's not activism. It's not, you know, doing something meaningful. It's not even like,
it's not activism or doing something meaningful, like convincing people that you're correct about a thing. By the way, that's all of politics. You fucking retard, right? Like if you look at the founding of the country, if you look at like any big like people arguing in Congress over amendments that you're trying to pass, like the founding fathers, like literally writing fucking pamphlets and shit to try to debate people into like, hey, here's why you should support the federalization of our fucking country. Here's why you should support, like writing pamphlets and shit. The Federalist Papers, writing pamphlets, it's literally debating people on fucking politics. Here's my political opinion opinion. Here's why I think it's right. Please support it so we can have a
So
fucking
mad.
country. No, debate isn't real politics. What real politics actually is me driving home from Starbucks in my $300,000 car so that I can get in my $3 million house so that I can come into my $5,000 or $50,000 or $150,000 a month.
Just a normal reaction to someone saying something objectively true, by the way, which is that debates can have some educational components, but ultimately it's about whose side has better rhetoric and not actually about the facts, which is precisely why someone like Ben Shapiro could technically own someone who is infinitely more knowledgeable on any matter that they're speaking of in the marketplace of ideas, but that doesn't mean that Ben Shapiro is correct. And debate itself also usually creates a very hostile environment that is just simply there for the blood sport. Okay? There's nothing funnier than watching him fucking lose his mind over a relatively understandable, relatively reasonable statement while simultaneously comparing himself to the founding fathers, when in fact the only comparison to the founding fathers was probably his proclivity to use the N-word, you know, and the energy that comes from that. So, don't know what he's going on about.
Month job to tell you about why socialism is the best thing ever. Like that's
Okay, well that was something. Here's always with producer Henry. Henry, I'm curious. Your initial reaction to, I guess, HasanPiker's comments and then Destiny's reaction.
Why was he listening to it at double speed or like 1.5 speed? Like
He was, yeah.
Yeah. It's just, what does he need it to match his own like pace and tone as far as like rushing through and speeding? This whole thing's just extremely weird and cringe to me because he's very fixated on but the whole point is I'm fucking right, and then he starts getting mad about like all the price tags on Hasan's things, and I don't know. I don't believe Destiny really has any first principles, and he's pretty narcissistic. So this was like, Jesus, I expected this, but just to hear it and see it, like, ouch.
True.
Yeah, it's interesting that Destiny
he's
makes
an
this
egoist.
connection between debate and, like, I think he said like the Federalist Papers, and he talked about Congress and government and the way in which debate leads to direct politics and forms
Yes.
of activism.
Yeah, he's equating what he's doing with like the writing of the Federalist Papers, but like the Federalist Papers were written by people who were like participants in government at the time, like who were also like actually acting on enacting legislation or like writing the law. It wasn't like on the internet you can be this hyper removed voyeur to the whole process and just be arguing from afar. Like it's a completely different like technological context than when like pamphlets were the main way information was spread.
Yeah, and I do think as well that there's a pretty marked difference between streamers debating, and I'm just repeating, what Henry just said, and politicians sitting in a room hashing out ideas as they form the underlying logic of a government or a political philosophy, I don't doubt that when, for example,
This is so funny. That guy is a debate guy and then goes straight to an ad hominem as a response. Yeah. Another funny thing that this dude, Pyotr Kropotkin, noticed.
When Marx and Engels were sitting around, when they were
Mr. Breadbook himself watching Wisecrack. That's crazy.
sitting around with workers in pubs in London talking about ideas, I'm sure that debate happened. But I think there's maybe a difference in what they're talking about here. But to be, we want to be fair, we want to be balanced, we want to be grounded. FunGPT brings up founding fathers, finding the 14 fathers. For anyone who doesn't regularly listen to the show, just so you know, it's canon that I have 14 dads. But we'll take a look at the interview itself, where these comments come from. I'm going to fast forward to the 30-minute mark, and I have the transcript pulled up as well. So I think you said, Henry, around 30 minutes is when they start talking about the drama stuff. Great. Now this is a interview from a Wired podcast with HasanPiker and McKenna Kelly and Leah Piker. Fun fact: Leah Piker is my cousin-in-law. I want to give credit where credit is due.
What credit? Credit that they married into your family? That's such a funny way to reveal that. D is using the fallacy of equivocation. You weren't using the word debate in the sense of discourse surrounding ideas. Hasan meant the internet blood sport of debate streamers that are making entertainment for midwit fail sons. Yeah. Like, I'm not saying no discourse should ever occur, of course. But ultimately it doesn't fucking matter, because all of the discourse online is simply about the aesthetics and simply about the drama in and of itself, which moves you away from actually caring about the issues.
I do have, I was just given Leah Piker's number. Probably won't be able to get her on right now. But maybe in the future we'll see if Leah Piker from Wired will come on and talk to us. So hopefully this is about the point where I have it pulled up here. So it was a wide-ranging interview. It's from their Politics Lab podcast. You guys can go check out the full thing for yourself. But, we want to listen to Piker's comments here on drama and debate. and see if there's something that was missed in the clip that went viral, and kind of see what his point is. As always, please, whether you're listening to this live or after the fact, jump in. And listen, we're not upsetting anyone here today. We're just here as objective, apolitical observers to see what's happening. So I'm going to start this interview right now, and we'll pause throughout as necessary.
Organizations as well, including like Heal Palestine. So like we're trying to look for charities on the ground that are actively working on the ground right now.
Talking about other creators, there is a lot of drama on Twitch, and
yes, always.
I'm curious, do you get stuck in it?
I will entertain drama from time to time, specifically because
what a way to put it.
Yeah, I mean, specifically because like I am human after all. I am weak, and also because I think that that's like what a lot of people in the margins, that's what they care about. They care about the drama. So I'll use that as a launching point, as a jump off point to like go back to more serious news coverage. So like I bring in the eyeballs for playing video games, or I bring in the eyeballs of the collaboration, and then I try to refocus their interest on something that's like genuinely important. And for every 3,000 people that come in just for the drama, if 500 stick around to hear my coverage on what's going on in Rafah, right? And then that's great. That's what I'm trying to do. I'm always, the reason why I'm trying to grow always isn't necessarily because like I'm on my Sigma grind state shit. I'm always trying to fucking max out on my revenue. I'm rev maxing. Like no, it's also because like I want to bring awareness to certain causes and try to instill some.
Why is everybody throwing up copiums for fucking video games? Like, what the fuck? I play video games all the time. What are we talking about? It is you who is throwing up a copium that doesn't actually watch me play video games. Shut the fuck up, chatters.
Some charitability in a broader audience. That
That's like an interesting idea there. We'll keep going, but the idea that HasanPiker is saying that he instrumentalizes both drama and the desire for consuming content around drama to bring people into broader conversations they might not be privy to otherwise. That sounds fair. I'm not mad at that. We'll keep watching now, like it if you're here.
will then listen to what I have to say on certain issues instead of going, oh, I hate that guy. That guy's like a socialist with a nice car. Fuck that guy.
So turning these like dramatic moments and like beefs with other creators into teaching moments for your audience.
I try to, yeah. Like the last round of this was like so laughable to have this conversation like with adults, but
Are you bringing up Destiny? Is that what
yeah, I was about to say like.
And I just want to note the name Destiny was said by a host of a podcast that we are listening to. That's who brought
I wasn't going to name names.
Yeah, no, there's a content creator who like loves debating, doesn't really care about any of the things that he debates about, but like he will assume like ridiculous stances, ridiculous positions. He's relatively skilled in rhetoric, not necessarily very knowledgeable on the issues, but rhetoric goes a very long way in debates. But beyond that, this dude is very edgy. Loves saying gamer words, the N-word specifically.
Okay, so let's pause there for a second. So, Hasan just said that there's a kind of creator who loves debating, doesn't really care about any of the things that he debates about, and is relatively skilled in rhetoric. I think it's really interesting. I think we can learn something about this, and I know a lot of us know this history, but we look back in the history of philosophy, especially Greek philosophy, you see a distinction between, let's say, like a Socratic figure, right? And what marks a Socratic figure, or literally Socrates followers, Plato's students, was an underlying motivation for knowledge and wisdom. In particular, an underlying motive for knowledge of oneself and understanding oneself such that they can understand the world around them and seeking out ideas like truth and justice. And of course, a knowledge of their fundamental ignorance. You see this in all those dialogues. Now, there was another type of person operating in that context, the sophists. You hear like sophistry. And these are people who are skilled in rhetoric as an art, who are good at giving convincing speeches. But these are often people whose aim or goal wasn't self-interrogation and external interrogation about wisdom, truth, beauty, meaning. The motivation was currying favor, being on the side of the politicians, making money, convincing people to follow your ideological program, or just getting attention, right? So I think that when we think about debate and rhetoric, one of the things I think about is, what is the motive for those things? And here, at least, HasanPiker is describing someone who debates because they love debating, debates because they're skilled at rhetoric, not because they are knowledgeable, not because they care about those things. And I think this is important, and I do think we'll talk about this more. When it comes to debate, I always think the first thing you have to ask, or at least the first thing I would ask myself, is, does this person care about the thing they're speaking on? Do they have an invested, emotional, or like in the Greek sense, pathetic, pathos-based interest in the thing? Or is this just like a sport or a game for them? And whether that's someone debating political ideas, debating their favorite games, debating music, people who love the thing are always going to be more interesting, and people that have a humility and are willing to interrogate themselves, always going to be more interesting. And of course, Hasan brings up that a lot of these people, one person in particular, loves saying gamer words, the N-word specifically. And we don't have politics or stances on Wisecrack Live, but Henry, are we comfortable in agreeing that white people just don't get to say the N-word ever?
Yeah, I think we are. Yeah.
Oh shit, dude! It's time. It's time to do another fucking. It's time to do another sequence. We have to fucking come after him now. How dare he say that? I don't know how you manage seeing comments like this on articles about you. Stay strong, brother. Now I am going to give this person. I'm going to tell this person, congratulations for trying and yet still failing to debate me at the top of the hour. Why will I congratulate you? Because I know that is actually Not just any normal comment under the Wired.com article, but instead a top of the hour ad break debate. However, I will congratulate you and I will tell you, at least you tried. At least you tried. Good try. You're fucking cooked nonetheless. Don't come at me with that. I'm ready. I'm ready. But are you ready for the top of the hour ad break? Because at the top of the hour, there's a 3-minute ad break regardless, unless you're subscribed. So get ready for the top of the hour ad break by subscribing for $5 or for free with the Twitch Prime. Here's the 3-minute ad break now. Dude. I feel like D does debate things he cares about. He really cares about being able to say the N-word. Yeah, that's true.
Great. So yeah, I think that, you just don't say the N-word, guys. Just don't. Just don't. Even if, never mind. So go ahead. I feel like you're about to say something.
Oh no, I don't. I was gonna just bring up the same thing. Like even in stuff where people cite it as an excuse to say the N-word, like Blazing Saddles, like the bad guys are the ones saying the word in Blazing Saddles, and they're portrayed as complete fucking idiots. So like even within the context of like whenever people try to justify it, just don't try, don't.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing too. Like if someone who presents themselves as an intellect or a rhetorician or a debater, you just ask yourself, if someone takes the time to try to intellectually justify using the N-word as someone who is not a black person, what is the motive? Right? Like what would be the self-interrogative or externally interrogative principle? What would be the seeking of wisdom? What would be the teleology of that desire other than A, it's dank to be edgy, or B, like getting off on transgression or something like that? You know, and there is a way, of course, that one could like, you can do a thing where you rhetorically like break down logic and break down language such that technically it's okay when I say this word, but then that completely, in this case, obfuscates the idea that that word is connected to a history and a context, and that that word has a very effective, particular political oppressive meaning in a community of people that you are not a member of. Okay, let's go back to the Wired interview. We're not here to express opinions. We're just seeing what is on Piker.
Recently, I feel like that happened recently.
It happened like 2 weeks ago where he said the N-word on a podcast.
In 2024. And we have people getting really upset about the word cracker.
Yes, which is really funny because like that is.
I'm gonna pause real quick. I don't know if any of you guys probably know this. I didn't catch up on this till recently. That then the response to in this debate, it went from like it's okay for white people to say the N-word, but then cracker is hate speech. It's not.
Definitely a very like reactionary aspect of the game.
Wait a minute. This guy needs a manifesto of his own, I think. Cracks knuckles. Methinks a manifesto is in order. Seems like the puppet master Hasan has been pulling your strings as well, sir. I'll have you know, I am doing a compilation video of all the many different instances where your vibes were off.
Gaming space in general, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, the power dynamics there are questionable at best.
Yeah, and it's been going on. It's been going on for like the past like 5-6 days now where everyone's like, yeah, you can't, anti-white slurs are unacceptable. What do you mean? Like, you don't care about anti-white racism. And I use that as an opportunity to try to explain to people like the etymology of the word and like the power dynamics and the history of chattel slavery. So it's not just like drama per se. It's not just me being like, that guy says the N-word. You're listening to a guy who says the N-word and I don't hear you criticizing him saying the N-word. You left that shit off, but then you fucking spend a ridiculous amount of time talking about how dangerous it is to make anti-white racism permissible. I mean, all three of us are white in this room. It's laughable, right? It's a laughable thing to be like, someone called me a cracker. Oh no.
I've been called so many worse things.
I'm curious in the chat or if anyone listening has opinions on being called cracker. As someone's from Florida, there was, the Florida cracker thing was a thing.
Florida
so
crackers.
Someone in the chat, SciComm, so good afternoon, incredibly coincidental you're talking about this, is I'll be in a debate with the D character tomorrow about whether online debates matter. Send us the link to that. SciComm. That's interesting. That is interesting. Bingo Bear says, I don't think anyone white feels bad if someone uses anti-white slurs. I do not feel bad. If you see me in the streets, please use an anti-white slur at me and be creative with it. Let's get back to
exactly right. And it's like it's so obvious what's going on, but I do think that a lot of people get duped. Like good-natured people that have some biases get duped into like reactionary framing on that issue. It's like bullying. It's wrong. It's bad, sure, but it's like when you make that comparison, when you flatten it out and say like this is all bigotry and it's all unacceptable, and the people saying that are literally also saying the N-word simultaneously. I'm like, well, you don't think that kind of bigotry is unacceptable at all. Kind of seems like you're making this a talking point because you want to expose hypocrisy where no such hypocrisy exists. So that's I try to use that as a teachable moment.
We're gonna listen to a little more. He gets back back around to some of the comments on debate.
Other people who listen.
Who are the other streamers that you do like that are focusing on politics coverage right now and doing it well?
There's a lot of great people. You have Sean the Black, Frogan, Caroline Kwan, Central Committee. There are a lot of like Twitch streamers specifically that also do political coverage. Carter's another one. Gremlo. So there are definitely content creators that are doing this sort of thing. But beyond that, I would say, you know, in the YouTube space, there's a lot of essayists that are great. They write a lot of YouTube essays. They do a lot of YouTube commentary. They're great. There's a lot of great people overall. None of them engage in debates, which is great. I hate people.
Only
like,
for you. Yeah.
No, I mean, I
actually
do
spoke to
debates
you in
from-
2021 about the Sam Cedar Steven Crowder debate and like how stupid it was.
Yeah.
I don't know if anyone remembers this. Were you around for the Sam Cedar Steven Crowder debate, Henry?
I vaguely remember, didn't like Ethan Klein surprise Steven Crowder with Sam
Yeah.
Cedar, and then like he ran off.
Yeah. It was not great. It was not great.
Well, that's the thing. Like, debates are just purely for entertainment. I think it can have an.
And then just note right here, this is the part of his comments that Destiny reacted to in particular. So the first thing you just said was debates are just purely for entertainment. And I mean, I do think, and we'll listen to the rest of his comments, and then we'll talk about this a little bit more. But you know, I think we have to ask the question as well: when a debate takes place, what is the context for the debate? What is the goal of that debate in maybe a more material sense? Because, for example, I've been at academic conferences before where there's a debate. And maybe it's a panel of people and they're discussing a book and they're debating that book. Or I've given papers before when I used to be an academic where there would be a respondent. And in that room, at that setting, I would say it was always one of two things happening. Either one, I would give a talk or someone else would give a talk and I'd respond. And that person would respond because they shared an interest in interrogating the meaning of a text.
Chatters mad have been looking down and not reading their comments when their comments are literally, can we pet Kaya now?
Or an idea, and maybe they disagreed with me, or maybe they wanted to push me on some ideas. That's what happens most of the time. Occasionally, you would have that person in the academic context who wanted to use that as an opportunity to say, look at me, I'm the biggest boy, I deserve all the treats. But that's, not as common. But some of these debates that happen now, we have to ask ourselves, like, they're happening on platforms that are designed to grab our attention, to get clicks. They're monetized. They're people trying to sell us things. So I think to act as if a lot of the modern online debates weren't at least, if not purely, at least in part or large part for entertainment, seems disingenuous. We'll listen to the rest of Piker's comments.
It's an educational component for sure, but overall, it's not about like whose facts are solid. It's more so about who says them in a more solid way, and also it's the theatrics. It's a good way to maybe bring some people over to your side in the margins, but overall, it's not activism. It's not doing something meaningful. It's not even like genuinely learning about an issue. It's more so learning the talking points.
Which honestly,
So that's the end of the interview. There's a couple other comments there. Again, that's on Wired. Shout out to cousin-in-law Leah Piker at Wired. It did that. So, I'm going to mention one thing from the chat and we'll get back to that. Amcon Psycon said, my position in tomorrow's debate is that online debates are typically entertaining sophistry. They're more for the entertainment of an audience than an attempt to convince, much less to find truth. And again, to look back at Piker's comments, he says, it's not about whose facts are solid. It's more about who says them in a more solid way in the theatrics. It's a good way to maybe bring some people over to your side in the margins, but overall, it's not activism. It's not doing something meaningful. It's not even genuinely learning about an issue. It's more so learning the talking points. Henry, I want to tag you in for a second. Do you have thoughts on this?
Reciting the talking points. It's about putting on the aesthetic of like how to best make it look cool. How do I, within this constraint of conversation, like make my thing look like the most aggressive and boastful? I'm thinking back to how he jumped immediately to the founding fathers as his reference for what he's doing, and it speaks to me of just like where his head is at as far as like where he wants like the performance of being as prestigious as the founding fathers, or is like integral to the importance of like national cultural doctrine as the founding fathers. It's wanting that skin more than it is like digging into it.
Yeah, I mean, it makes you think. A couple weeks ago on stream, you can go back and check this out if you guys missed it. We talked about the Kendrick Lamar and Drake beef, and some of what happens in the context of online debate just reminds me more of rap beef in terms of like who's the loudest, who says the craziest thing, who makes you.
You had a very honest and accurate answer. No, that's precisely the reason why he fucking lost his mind and had like, he was just like spitting on his fucking camera with anger.
Say, oh shit, and that sort of stuff. Because I don't think, when some of the big online debaters, whenever I force myself to watch these things, it's a lot of yelling, it's a lot of name calling, it's a lot of aggressive emotion, and there's not a lot. I mean, and we'll talk more about this because in a second we're gonna have our buddy.
He had no fucking arguments, which is why he immediately was like, "You have a nice car. You have a nice car, and you have a nice house. I hate it."
Luxon will be on in a few
Okay,
minutes, but
thanks, man.
it rings a little bit of kayfabe, even from wrestling sometimes, where people seem like they are just like they're all in on it because they know that it's going to benefit them all in terms of their ability to produce content. I do agree that Kendrick had more impressive arguments when it came into that. Beatmaster, we're not avoiding Vosh. I'm not as knowledgeable on the depth of the debate space because some of that stuff makes me, want to take a cold bath and too many edibles. But I think the big thing here, and a couple things I'm at least struck by, is, the underlying motive of these debates. What are we trying to do? What do we think the goal is? I am fairly unconvinced that the type of debates that we see online are having material social and political effects. I do believe that there are instances in which watching those debates might expose people to newer, different ideas. Sometimes those ideas are good. Sometimes they might be radicalizing ideas, which are not so great. But I do not believe in my heart of hearts, and there's a little bit of projection here, that many of these debatemen, they're mostly men, I do not believe their motive is Socratic. And by that I mean, I do not think they are attempting to interrogate themselves and the world around them with the overall purpose of leading others towards a sense of truth and wisdom. And I'm not going to get too into this, but I had this pulled up. Let me see if I can find it real quick. So there's go ahead.
Oh, something you're bringing to mind to me is I had friends who, they had their political awakenings in their 20s and they became bigger political participants. And I think stuff like Destiny and that particular flavor of debating just kind of turns people off in general. Like in a wider swath, I think some people just like look at that and that's what they see.
They either get turned off from it completely or they get really invested. And unfortunately for all of us, it is absolutely the worst kinds of people leaning into their absolute worst opinions. There's a lot of people that enjoy that kind of content. Like they love watching Conquest. And it sucks because those people are unimaginably malleable and can be swayed and don't necessarily have like a real they don't really have a moral compass at all, and they just are in it for the toxicity.
See or generalize as like politics as being is just like being angry, unhappy, and like petty online, and it may dissuade people who may otherwise be motivated.
Yeah. Well, I mean, for example, to touch on what Henry just said, with the Destiny example, I'm someone who until recently was pretty unfamiliar with Destiny. We talked about the, I guess, debate between Jordan Peterson and Destiny that took place a month or so ago. Ironically enough, when we watched that debate, I was way more sympathetic with Destiny than I was with Jordan Peterson, but said a couple things that Destiny's audience really didn't like. His audience is not a good advertisement for him as a serious person. But people in our audience, people that I like, even kind of push me. Some of our friends on Discord are like, "Hey, Michael, you should check this out. He's a little hyperbolic, but he makes some good points." But then as soon as I see him just like jokingly saying the N-word, it's like, I don't want to date. Why would I take you seriously? Because if you're doing that, I don't trust your motive. Now, I'll maybe come back to this. I have a section pulled up from Plato's Republic. In particular, I have Alain Badiou's translation, and then that was translated from the French by Kenneth Reinhardt and Susan Spitzer. Alain Badiou, a French philosopher I like a lot, rewrote Plato's Republic in more modern language. And I was reading some of this.
This is, by the way, if you spend a lot of time online, if you spend a lot of time on Twitter, if you spend a lot of time on Reddit, unfortunately, you won't recognize this attitude. But that is the overwhelming majority of people. When they see you behave like a edgy 14-year-old, okay, they just immediately will be like, you are a pathetically unserious person. That is the norm and attitude. And you should remember that. And I think fans of this kind of edge should also recognize that and maybe